Okay, I've read from Bloom twice already. This is going to be the third and final time. I've introduced you to Anaya, Petra, and now I want to read a chapter from Seth's point of view. Seth is the final character in my new book, Bloom. Chapter 3, Seth. Seth didn't know anything about farming, but he was pretty sure that the stuff growing in Mr. Antos's field was not broccoli. It was tall and black and spiky and seemed to have shot up overnight as the rain hammered on the roof. Even as he'd slept, he was aware of it and of the aching in his arms and hands, a weird, impatient pain in his joints. He had a dim memory of pain like this when he was little. Growing pains, wasn't that what they called it? Just before dawn, the rain had stopped and he drifted off until the smell of coffee and bacon woke him up. He turned away from the window and pulled on some clothes. Seth had lived a lot of places, but never on a farm. As he went downstairs for breakfast, he couldn't remember the last time he'd actually felt like leaving his room. Even having his own room was pretty rare. "It stands tall, almost like bamboo," Mr. Antos was saying, coffee in hand, gazing out the window at his field. They got up early, Mr. and Mrs. Antos. They always told Seth he could sleep in on weekends, but Seth was an early riser, up with the birds. And anyway, he liked their Saturday breakfasts. Bacon, fried eggs, blueberry pancakes with butter and maple syrup, and toast if you had any room left. In his last place, they'd just line up a few boxes of cereal on the counter. "I'm going to ask Mike Riggs to come have a look," Mr. Antos said to his wife. "He might know about this stuff." "Good idea," Mrs. Antos said. "Pancakes, Seth?" A place was already set for him at the breakfast table. Like they'd hoped, he would join them. Sitting, he speared several pancakes with his fork. The Antos's dog, an old friendly lab called Maddox, nosed around under the table, brushing Seth's legs, hoping he'd drop something. "Mike's with the Ministry of Agriculture," Mr. Antos told Seth, joining them. "They've got an experimental farm here on the island. He's their weed expert. Maybe he can tell me how to tackle this." "You probably know his daughter, Anaya," said Mrs. Antos. "She's in your grade, I think." Seth nodded. Just yesterday, she'd taken his picture for the yearbook. She wasn't pretty like Petra Sumner in his English class, but she was friendly, and he'd felt at ease with her, which was weird, because it usually took him a long time to feel comfortable with people. With Anaya, though, it was like they'd already met. "A nice girl," said Mrs. Antos. "Poor dear's allergic to everything under the sun. I can't even imagine." Seth doubted the Antoses had ever been sick a day in their lives. They were both big people. They had big heads and the biggest hands he'd ever seen. They could pick big things up and move them anywhere they wanted. They were always working. They made Seth feel weak and spindly and tired just watching them. "We can't force you to help out," Mr. Antos told him when he'd first arrived, "but we think you'd really enjoy it, Seth. It's very satisfying, and knowing how to grow your own food is a pretty useful skill." The first few weeks, Seth hadn't helped out much. He kept to his room. He sketched, plugged into his headphones, with his mind as far away as he could fling it. He'd never been a talker. He hadn't been convinced there was much point in making an effort or getting used to anything. He tended to get moved around. There are all sorts of words to explain why. A family might have a change in priorities, or there was a personality conflict, or certain needs that weren't being addressed, or there were insurmountable challenges as a result of attachment disorder. After his last family, his social worker, Shayla, had asked him what he thought about living on a farm. And it was funny, because people were always asking how he felt about things, but it seemed stupid, because it wasn't like he had choices. He didn't have all these families lining up for him. He went where they sent him. Shayla had said the Antoses were an older couple who wanted to welcome a young person onto their farm. Their own children were grown up now and had left the island, but the Antoses were in good health and still farmed organic vegetables. Shayla told him this was a great place for him. Seth asked her why. "The country," she'd said. "The fresh air, the chance to be active and get in touch with the earth and its cycles. A new start." "Seth," she'd said, "you've had your share of rough patches. You don't have too many years before you're of legal age. Then you're on your own. So right now you've got a chance to think about your future. What kind of things you might want to do, school, job, whatever. I think this could be a really good place for you. They're good people, Seth. And I told them you were a good person and you would thrive in their home." Seth didn't feel like he'd thrived anywhere yet. The Antoses were his 7th family since his mother gave him up. In the early days, he felt like he was waiting for something, maybe his mom coming to take him back. But as the years went by and she never came, He knew it wasn't her she was hoping for. It was something else, and he still hadn't quite figured it out. Maybe this small new feeling he had with the Antoses, maybe this was it. He liked the island. It was the first time he'd lived near so much water. He liked the way you could see the weather coming, the way the light slanted low in the mornings and evenings. He felt like something might be starting. "I'm going to weed after breakfast," Mr. Antos said. Seth hadn't taken much interest in farming. He didn't know anything about how you planted things or took care of them, but for the first time, he thought he might want to. "Can I help?" he asked. If Mr. Antos was surprised, he showed no signs of it. "You certainly can. I'm not planning on losing my crop to this stuff. Eat up." As he got it from the table, he put his hand briefly on Seth's shoulder. It didn't feel like other hands that had been placed on him. He looked at his plate for a moment, just breathing, feeling the warm imprint of Mr. Antos's hand. After helping clean up breakfast, Seth went out to the field with Mr. Antos. There were 8 rows of the small green broccoli seedlings Mr. Antos had planted just 2 weeks ago. The black grass grew between the rows, sometimes right up close to the plants. Seth walked in for a better look. The grass had no leaves, but spiky hairs spiraled up its stalks. He touched a smooth bit. It was hard, completely black, not even a hint of color. It was like something that didn't belong. The blackness of it kept pulling his eyes back, like it had a gravitational force and was swallowing light itself. Seth got his first lesson in using a hoe. Mr. Antos gestured a lot with his massive hands, and his instructions were calm and clear. "Usually weeds just rip out fairly easily," he said, demonstrating. "These guys are stubborn." With small, strong blows, Mr. Antos chopped away at the base of the black grass. It took 3 tries before the stalk fell over. "Deep roots," Mr. Antos said, bending down and making a small cluck of disapproval. "You want to angle the blade deep to get them up." Seth took his hoe and started on the next row. It was hard, but he liked it. "Good work," Mr. Antos called from the next row over. After an hour or so, they took a break, and Seth was soaked with sweat and his arms ached, but in a good way. They drank water from the outdoor tap and sat on lawn chairs. "Good thing you had a second helping of pancakes, huh?" said Mr. Antos. Seth gave a quick grin. "I love the smell of the earth," said Mr. Antos. "It always makes me feel a bit younger. Ready for some more hoeing?" Seth nodded. After a while, Seth suddenly realized he hadn't been thinking about anything else. It was such a relief to feel so calm inside. He came to a thick stalk, and even after he hacked at its base 5 times, he couldn't chop it down. He grabbed it and yanked. His hand skidded along, and he winced as a line of pain cut his palm. He looked down and saw a line of bright blood. "You get cut," Mr. Antos said, looking over. He put down his hoe and walked over. "Let's get that cleaned up." "It's not so bad," said Seth. "We both need gloves with this stuff." At the tap, Seth washed off the blood, and Mr. Antos came back with a dishcloth, gloves, and a box of Band-Aids. "Take a break if you want," said Mr. Antos. "No, I'm good," said Seth, and took the pair of gloves Mr. Antos offered. Close to noon, a truck came up the driveway and parked. Seth watched as Anaya hopped out of the passenger side. His stomach knotted up a little. He hadn't expected her to come too. She walked toward the field with Mr. Riggs, their arms jostling, talking animatedly, and Seth thought, that's how someone walks with their father. Mr. Antos went to greet them, and for a second, Seth wavered. He was used to hanging back. Then he remembered how Shayla was always saying he should make an effort with people. So he stood tall and stretched. He realized he genuinely wanted to talk to Anaya. "Hey," she said when he walked over. "Hi." She sneezed and blew her nose, which was red at the end. A lot of her face was splotchy because of her acne. He could tell she was self-conscious about it, because she kept resting her hand on her cheek, like she was trying to cover it up. He knew what it was like to feel different, to want to hide away some part of yourself. He liked how lively and intelligent her eyes were. He already knew she was smart. In math class, she answered more questions than almost anyone. He wondered why she'd come along today. Probably she just liked spending time with her dad. Maddox the dog ambled over to greet her, and she dropped to her knees to pat him enthusiastically. "Hey, gorgeous," she said, burying her hands in his fur. Maddox literally lapped up her praise, licking her face. Anaya grinned at Seth. "I'd love a dog, but..." As if on cue, she sneezed 3 times in a row. "Allergies," he said. "Yep." She stood and took a hit of her puffer, then looked out over the weed-infested fields. "Man, look at this stuff." You're not alone, Mr. Riggs was telling Mr. Antos. I've had other calls. When did you first notice it? Mr. Antos shrugged. All this happened overnight. Anaya's father took a cloth measuring tape from his pocket and held it against one of the standing stalks of black grass. 3'4" in, let's say, 12 hours? Mr. Riggs whistled softly. That's a lot, right? Seth asked. Sure is, replied Mr. Riggs. There are species of bamboo that grow 3 feet in 24 hours, but this is twice as fast. We have some in our yard that's even taller, Anaya said. I saw it yesterday when I got home from school. This morning it was like we had a hedge. This isn't something you're familiar with, Mr. Antos asked Mr. Riggs. Something you've seen on your farm? Anaya's father shook his head. I posted it on Plant ID this morning, and I'm waiting to see if we get any matches. Anaya grinned at Seth. Plant ID is a site for plant nerds. They post pictures of weird stuff from all over the world and ask if anyone knows what it is. People are usually pretty quick about it, Mr. Riggs said. Anyway, I'll know more Monday when I talk to the ministry. Mr. Antos blew air from his cheeks and looked out at his fields. It's lucky I've got an extra hand. He nodded at Seth. Looks like you guys have a good start on it, Mr. Riggs commented. You know, you might want to spray. My customers expect herbicide-free, Mr. Antos said. I know it's a tough call, Mr. Riggs said, but spraying could be your only chance. This stuff is aggressive. It might crowd out your entire crop. Mr. Antos looked at Seth and said, What do you think, Seth? Seth blinked, wondering if Mr. Antos was seriously asking his opinion. Well, he began, it's between something or nothing. A true pragmatist, Mr. Antos said. We'll see how it goes. Thanks for coming by, Mike. No worries, said Anaya's father. If you don't mind, I'm going to take one of these guys back to the farm with me. Please, take it all, Mr. Antos laughed. But use my gloves. Seth already got cut. Here, I'll do it, said Seth. He grabbed it with both hands and yanked. It took 2 tries before the stalk ripped free, trailing soil-clumped roots like jellyfish tentacles. He handed it over to Mr. Riggs. Thanks, Seth. Mr. Riggs took hold of it carefully and gave it a shake. Sheesh. Deep roots. A couple of rhizomes already coming off it. What are rhizomes? Seth asked. Anaya explained. Underground shoots the plant sends out to start a brand new plant. Seth heard Mr. Antos give a sigh, which means tomorrow we could have a whole new crop. See you Monday, Anaya said to him with a backward wave as she returned to the truck. Bye, said Seth. After the Riggses left, Seth finished hoeing with Mr. Antos and went upstairs to take a shower. Water steamed around him. It felt good hitting his skin. He soaped his face, his chest, his long, skinny arms. He counted the small, pink scars which started at his wrists and were spaced every inch or so all the way up the side of his arms to his shoulders, 20 on each arm. Soon you'll forget you ever had them. That's what the surgeon had said after the operation. He'd smiled when he said it, trying to be kind. Seth remembered that smile, those words. And the doctor was wrong. Seth had never forgotten them. I've met Seth, third main character in my book, Bloom. Hope you enjoyed that.